And Eli Sanders just follows his blocker, kicks out the outside guy, stretches it to the edge, gets that nice big old.
All right, welcome back. A little more of a disappointing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever you are checking this out. But thanks for tuning in to the Cyclone Fan Perspective. Always brought to you by Play the Fight Song podcast, where we always cover everything college football. In the week that was week 10, whether you were a Iowa State, Iowa, Georgia, Florida, whatever fan you were, it was an awesome week. You have to appreciate it the way it was, even though your team might not have exceeded your expectations. And that's where we are brought in today for the Cyclones. I'm joined by my little brother, JT, Justin. He's going to give us a little bit of perspective on how the game went yesterday. I was unable to get eyes on the game live for the first time, not only this year, but I think it's been, I don't remember the last time I haven't even watched a game on TV. It feels like it's been a couple of years. So, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I don't know if I missed too much. Went back and
it was a good thing for you.
Went back and saw it. Justin, other than your voice and probably the long night that you had, hopefully the Cyclones probably infused some of that. Tell me how just Jack Trice Stadium is and how the game was as a whole, other than some of the mediocre football you watched.
Well, it was a great atmosphere to start the game. I mean, you were there for the TCU game. They did the whole fireworks show to start the game, had everybody packed. That was like, I wasn't so sure how the atmosphere was going to be leading up to it because it was a Kansas game, but it was a big night game. And it was about 5:00 and everyone was already kind of making their way into the stadium. And for this year, that was kind of new. Like everyone was trying to get in early and like get after it, but like no one really had, I don't know. It didn't feel like as big of a game as it really was for us. And it kind of felt like the team kind of showed up like that. Like Kansas came out and like punched us in the mouth right away. And we just looked sloppy. And like the fans.
Did it look like the players had 12 beers like you guys did in the parking lot? That's kind of how it looked.
Not exactly. It just seemed like we hadn't watched Kansas all year. Like we weren't ready for them to come out as hard as playing as they were. I mean, we haven't, like, granted, we've had a pretty good win streak going, but we haven't had somebody really punch us in the mouth in like a month, like since the Oklahoma game. And Kansas played well, but like they're not world beaters. I don't think they're that much of a better team than us. But they came out like really buttoned up, and that was just too much.
Yeah, and I think the surprising thing to everybody was, number one, it was at home, and to not put up a single touchdown in the first half, I think it was a surprise for them. And you might have to remind me, didn't they go down first possession of the game and score? That hasn't happened.
Yeah.
They said that hadn't happened in 6 years at home since like Texas came to town in 2017. That Iowa State's given up a touchdown on the first possession on defense. So that was, like you said, they came out and punched us in the mouth. And I don't think this team like overlooked Kansas. For God's sakes, they're the 21st ranked team in the college football playoff, and they're a good team. I'll hear it on our podcast on Thursday. You know, Cam and JP and Reese will give me shit about all the shit I talked on Kansas all year. I do think they're a good team. I think they have all Big 12 caliber players all across the field. But I think for me, looking back, I was a little surprised how physically up front Iowa State seemed. Like they were dominated in that facet. You texted me in the game like how Rocco had happy feet, and we knew they were aggressive on defense, but we couldn't pick up a blitz to save our lives. And I think that's where you talk about like where we didn't see coming. I don't think that Campbell and staff were ready for that in the first half.
I don't know exactly what play it was, but I think it was the second quarter, and it was a third down, and they only had 3 down linemen. So, okay, so we should be able to pick this up pretty well. And it was like the blitz was almost like a draw blitz. Like the linebacker sat there for a second and then just took off. And our O-line like didn't even make an attempt at it. Like he didn't get touched. Like they brought 3 and then 1 linebacker, and we had no idea what to do. It was like, we know like their aggressive defense and like to bring extra guys, the same thing that we do. And in the first half, our O-line just looked lost trying to pick that stuff up.
That's what we want to go into a couple things. We're going to go into the biggest plays of the game. We're going to look back at my 3 keys from the preview. I mean, kind of jot it down that way. But I want to ask you, and from other things that I've heard and other Cyclone podcast and things. They kind of thought Campbell and Shieldhouse kind of called plays like they did in those first 3 games, where it was kind of slow, methodical. They tried to get like Stanley on screens or like Noel on flares. They tried to run the football, and I don't think it was like a terrible attempt, but like I thought they were kind of slow. Like, you love to get on your tangent. You don't play to lose. I know you love to talk about it. Kind of, I don't think it was full-fledged that way, but I do feel like it was a very conservative, at least first half.
Yeah, I'm not here like trying to say we need to be an air raid offense. Like, we're obviously much better when we can run the ball. And it was right away from the first possession. Like, we had I don't know if you saw it, but like we had the first down. They called a first down. Rocco had it, and then for some reason they reviewed it and brought us back like a half yard short. And then we punted right away. So 3 and out right away. And then they go on this long drive and go and score. And it's mentally after that, like, it seemed like we got a little conservative. Like, they did great, like, credit to them. They did a great job of stopping the run. And once we stopped, they had us in predictable down and distances after that. And that's when like their blitzes, like I said, they're on the third downs were just murdering us. So then we like started getting cute with like our screens and stuff to try to beat the blitz. And it took us like a good 2.5 quarters.
Absolutely.
Against a team like that. Like, I mean, it was just too little too late. They still almost made the comeback, but yeah, it just took way too long.
I think the frustration from a lot of people is Kansas basically beat Iowa State in Iowa State fashion. You know, you have the former MAC coach in Lance Leipold. I think he's got more of a prolific offensive style than Campbell does with his teams, but they really beat Iowa State in Iowa State fashion. Like, they got the pick 6. They forced the margins. They didn't run the ball really well, but they capitalized on third downs. They stayed on the field. They definitely looked faster on defense. Like, they kind of looked like a Heacock defense. They were aggressive. They forced an offense making mistakes we don't normally make. But then again, I think the last thing before we really get into is this is easily the best team we've played in a month. Like,
oh yeah,
I want to credit Iowa State for the changes that they've made and the success that they've had, but especially you look at yesterday, man. Cincinnati, TCU, and Baylor are 3. I don't love to beat around the bush. Bad football teams, really bad football teams. So, you know, there's still a lot to go ahead into the season, but we'll get into that a little more later this week. I want to look back at my 3 keys and kind of highlight them, because I think that's really where we lost them. I think I knew that what we needed to do in order to win the football game, and we did a couple of things that set us up to win, that I was a little surprised by that still lost us the game. But the first one I had was capitalizing on big plays. Kansas, I think, did way more. They had the 80-yard touchdown after we scored. And Mello Dotson, who had a pick 6 last week, comes back again and gets a pick 6 before he gets hurt again. So just our luck. And big plays, big players. Jaden Higgins, 3 catches, 56 yards, and his biggest catch came from a receiver throwing in the damn ball. So
like, it worked.
We
needed that.
That one came at a great time. I agree. But
quarterback throws that ball. It might have been a touchdown, but
the only way I remember this, I don't have a photographic memory, but I just watched the game like 2 hours ago. That same possession before Noel had that completion, Rocco, they were on their own 5. He hits Stanley for like a negative 2-yard loss, and he had Higgins wide open, like 70 yards down the field. So I said he would be open. I said he'd be open downfield, and I felt like Rocco missed some of those chances.
A lot of people were kind of complaining about that play, but if you look at it, that's kind of the thing. It wasn't exactly a happy feet play, but you could tell he's going through progression. It was just like a basic like flood right.
He's just open, banging it for 3 yards.
We got the 10-yard. We got the 10-yard out, and then we got the flat, and they were all over the 10-yard out, and he's already rolling out. And like, if he doesn't throw that ball down to the flat, he's not completing the ball. And it was like right as he was getting ready to throw is when Higgins broke. So like, I kind of understand why he did it, but you kind of wish like he would have been a little more aggressive and like looked to Higgins to try to make a play, because like it was there, but I understand why he didn't throw it.
Yep. Second one, I highlighted it. I thought we needed at least 2 interceptions. I thought the secondary needed to show up. We don't even get a single turnover in general. 0 turnovers for the Cyclone defense on a group that was top 5 in picks this year. And that's really been the backbone for Heacock's defense. Blake Thompson and Jontez Williams were thrown into the duties of Jeremiah Cooper. I first off want to apologize to Jeremiah Cooper because I undermined his importance on that defense. I talked about I thought Malik Verdone was the most important player. I'm just not a very good football mind, and I'm willing to admit like the secondary and especially the back end of Freiler, Cooper, and Verdone are all important. So when you have one of those guys out, I think it's so detrimental to every facet of that defense right now.
For sure. And credit to their coaching staff. Like, I don't think Iowa State played bad by any means. Obviously they could have played better, but like Kansas, they were just so buttoned up, and it felt like such a well-coached game. Like, they were there when they needed to be every time. It was right from the get-go. Like you talked about it. Like, we couldn't let them run the ball. And Iowa State was all over their run, but Kansas, like, coming into the game, they were ready for that. Their RPO to start the game was killing us because we were all over the run and guys were open by like 5 yards, and that scheme and our DBs were just not there. Like, that's definitely the worst our secondary has played all year, which was really disappointing because we needed them for that, especially with how limited our pass rush can be. Mm-hmm. We need our DBs to step up, and their guys were getting...
Yeah, 100%. And even like, I don't want to highlight Thompson and Williams like as the fault. I think that they definitely went after them on third downs, especially in that first half. They're like, we're going after these new guys. That's how we're going to stay on the field. But hey, Malik Verdone, he's the one who gets beat on that 80-yard touchdown. That really kind of it wasn't the nail in the coffin, but it really set back Iowa State's momentum in that fourth quarter. And that's the last point I want to get to. I said force Bean to beat you with his arm. Don't let him get out of the pocket. He had negative yards rushing, obviously inflated due to sacks. But Neal only gets like 50 yards. Highshaw got 20 something. And like you said, Lance Leipold, like, he turned Kansas around for a reason. He's got to be a smart enough guy to do that job. And he was ready for it.
I knew he was good, but damn, like, I was not ready for that. Like, they came right at our inexperienced guys right away. They attacked our tendencies. They knew were coming. Like, and they executed on third down. They came up with plenty of great plays just to get guys open. Like, yeah, I didn't think Beam was that good, but he did his job the whole game. He did his job. He did his job. He wasn't the quarterback that I was concerned about playing about. And
sure.
He missed a couple throws, but he hit a couple big throws like exactly every time they needed it. Which
I think he's the best quarterback Iowa State's seen in a month. That's not saying much. Like, Chapin's not very good. Emory Jones is not very good. Morris and Hoover was their backup for TCU is not very good.
When he got hurt and then came back into the game and then like converted a third down like a couple plays later, that's when I was like, fuck.
dude has guts. He played with guts.
Yeah.
He had 20 yards per completion. Obviously, the 80-yard pass is going to inflate that a little bit, but still, I mean, he was probably averaging at least a good 10 to 15, which is something you don't see often. He had 180 QBR, and he only had 13 completions, but it seemed like every one that he had was just monumental.
When they needed
every throw.
He missed one throw on the right side of the field going towards like the Jacobson building. I can't remember what quarter it was in. He missed one throw, but like that was really it for the most part.
I think that's where I can like sleep at night. I think Iowa State said, all right, go beat us to Jason Bean and we'll limit your run game. And by golly, I mean, he did. So I think that's where a lot of Iowa State fans aren't as frustrated. But let's cover the last thing. Biggest plays that impacted the game, and then we'll kind of move forward with the last 3 games of the year. Obviously, I had down the 80-yard touchdown pass to Arnold. He's your best receiver. Verdone, you can't get beat on that. They like set up a speed option. Bean gets out of it 2 steps, and he was wide open. That was after Iowa State cut it to 21-18. Had a chance with the momentum. I heard Juicy Wiggle was playing. The stadium was absolutely.
I know. I texted you. I texted you right away because like it's gotten pretty predictable this way. You know when they're gonna play it. Like everyone, like I don't know. Everyone loves.
But that's the point. That's the point. Like
nobody knows what it means, but it gets people going. So
you play it at the biggest point of the game.
And they saved that play for it. It was the same thing. It wasn't like an exact RPO, but whoever our safety was on that possession there, they crashed right down and they were ready to take advantage of it. They were ready to go for a big play right away. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, when they needed it, they were all over it.
I thought another play that not sort of plays in general was not scoring after the kickoff return. Jalen Knoll returns a huge. He's been awesome the kick return and punt return game. Really, the Big 12 season. We thought he got it down to Kansas's 5. They
He did.
call it back. They call it back, dude. On TV, they didn't give a good angle for that at all. Like, I really hope that sideline judge was on it because TV did not help him out.
I mean, the
I don't
video's all over Twitter now. I don't know what they were looking at. It was tough because there's a lot of missed and questionable calls before that. I mean, the biggest calls I can remember sticking out was like obviously the first drive when they took away that first down, we punted, and then we finally got that big play, called it back by like 20 yards, and then a couple plays later, the fraudulent fumble, which leads to a missed PI. And I hate bitching about refs. Like those plays hurt the momentum so much that like when the margin for error is so small in the Big 12 like this, like it just kills the momentum, and we weren't able to overcome it yesterday, which I mean sometimes you do. It helps when you're at home. Like if we're on the road, it's could have got a lot uglier, but
right.
when stuff like that happens, it's just so hard to overcome when the
Well,
margin for error is so small.
and especially when you're down like that much, you just can't afford to make any more mistakes than you already have. Like everyone is going to continue to set you back that much more. And speaking
Fans
of
start to
which,
get ornery. I hate that. I hate when everyone starts bitching about the refs. But like there's sometimes like with plays like that, it's so easy to see. Like you don't really know what they're missing. It's frustrating, sure.
Speaking of frustrations, the last thing I highlighted was just the 3 third down conversions on the last possession of the game. Iowa State gives the ball back to Kansas after they make the field goal with 4 minutes left and 2 timeouts. I mean, if you would have told me Kansas would have held on to the ball for the rest of the game and Iowa State wouldn't even have had it with like 20 seconds left, I would have I would have thought you were crazy. I thought John Haycock would find a way to get us the ball back with some sort of time left, and they didn't. Like, Bean made the throws. They had a couple of decent-sized 5-yard gash runs, and they were 6 of 13 on third down conversions in general. Every single one felt just massively important and kept them on the field. But those 3 on the last possession of the game, that one really hurt because that's Iowa State's backbone in this entire Matt Campbell era is the defense never breaking. It's bent, but it's never broken. And they just couldn't get them off the field, couldn't give the offense another shot. Offense dug themselves in a hole, but when you needed the defense the most, they couldn't come up with it. I think that's the most disappointing thing. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, going into those last 4 minutes, I didn't feel very good going into it because like you said it right when we hopped on this call, and me and Dad like highlighted it when we were there. We're like, what is their third down efficiency right now? Like it felt like it was way higher than it was. They were 6 of 12 on third down, and we were 6 of 12. They were 6 of 13. But like all 6 of those third down conversions for them, and they had a fourth down, just came at the biggest times. And like that was just like the whole motto of the day, really, is like when it was time for them to show up, they were there and they were ready. Especially that last one after we called our 2 timeouts, we needed one more stop. It was 3rd and 3. That little pop pass play they ran, that was amazing. I mean, amazing for a pop pass. Like it's exactly
it's a great call at the right time.
They just kept having exactly what they needed, and it was never lucky. It was just like tip your hat to them. It's like it's like just they were better than us yesterday, and it's just sucks. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, though. I think I could argue Iowa State might be a better team in facets, but I don't really want to get into it. Like you said, you want to tip your cap. You played a good team. They won. They've won now 2 Big 12 games in a row. They haven't done that since 2008. This is the second win in a row Leipold has on Campbell. And Kansas is moving in the right direction. Like you said, we have to accept them as a legitimate Big 12 team, especially in the new Big 12 next year. So you move on. And going off of that, I want to ask you, 3 games left, a trip to Provo, Texas comes to town, miraculously atop of the Big 12 after yesterday, and then a trip to Manhattan, which is almost dead in the water before we even get there. These last 3 games and maybe a bowl game, what's your expectation for the Cyclones going the rest of the way?
I mean, looking at the schedule, you hope we get the BYU game and that we're competitive in the last two. I mean,
Yep.
it's really all you can ask for. I looked and saw we're a 7-point favorite next week.
Are we
And
really? That's
yeah,
actually the first time I've heard that.
I thought it was too high.
That is really high.
Like thinking back to our last couple games, if BYU's kind of as bad as the teams that we've played previous, then that makes sense. But I just think our first West trip, like in the mountains, 8:00 West kick, 9:00 here, man, that team could be bad.
That's
And
a
that's
weird place to play
not
too.
gonna be
It's
an
a
easy game.
weird. No, not at all.
So it's a little worrisome, but I think, especially after this game, I think we're going to show up. I think Campbell and the coaching staff will have them ready. I think even when Texas comes to town, well, granted, who knows what a quarterback's going to be. And I like to say, like, anything can happen in Ames. That's why, like, this loss was so tough because you hate losing night games at home. Just kind of lose its luster there. But I think we can at least stay competitive with that. And then K-State, I mean, me and you were looking at tickets to K-State. I don't know about you, but I'm not really interested in that anymore.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I was asked if I was still looking, and I was like, we'll see. That's my thing. I know that BYU's a bad football team right now, but that's a weird game, and the other two are tough. I think you're nailing the head with it. You got to get one, in one of these wins will be a good win, no matter who it is against. And I don't necessarily say that any of these three will be bad losses. Maybe depending on how the game actually results, maybe Iowa State should have won a game and then they end up losing. But
yeah,
you just got to find one. And I think I texted you this with what 2024 presents on the schedule, and the freshmen and the young talent around this team. Like, get to a bowl game, play some Conference USA team, play like Liberty in Shreveport or something. Get a win going into 2024. That's what you're fighting for right now. You're fighting for momentum going into 2024. You're fighting for more reps for the young guys. And I think you just got to find one in these last three. I think obviously next week's the biggest opportunity as far as winning goes. But we'll see. I think after yesterday, I think I can speak on behalf of all Iowa State fans that we're all on the same page now. I know you're a little more optimistic. I know you were kind of putting the cards together to try to get to Dallas. I appreciate it, but I think yesterday's result I think all Iowa State fans are on the same page. Just get one more, play for a bowl game.
I mean, as a fan, though, I kind of feel like that's our job to get excited and get up for it. So, like, I don't feel bad about it. I mean, if we win that game, it's like everything is still in front of us. But this last stretch, like in November, I can't think of a tougher month of games in the modern Big 12, like, since in the last 10 years that we've had. Like, ranked Kansas at home, at a night game in BYU, and then this Texas and Kansas State teams. That's a tough stretch. Like, Campbell, like that was the biggest thing the last couple of years. We've been really good in October, like the whole Brocktober thing, like that's been our month. And then November, it kind of fades away. And I want to see it. Obviously, I want to see us get to a bowl game, but we need to be competitive in those last two games as well.
Mm-hmm.
We can't like have it be like an Oklahoma situation where we just look outmanned and they just run away.
And I don't think they will.
No, I don't think so
any
either.
Of these teams.
I don't think so either. But like, if we don't show up or if we're not buttoned up, if we don't bring the intensity like Kansas brought today, like those games could get out of hand.
Absolutely. Well, I like you said, I like the way you said it. We're tipping the cap. Okay, we're moving on. We have 3 more games, 3 more opportunities. You got to just steal one. And that's really all we have for this week. Losing's never fun, but I think we've definitely seen worse this year. Ask us about a month and a half ago. I think, the Iowa, the Ohio, the Oklahoma loss was still much worse than this one. Kansas is a good football team. We got to move on, and we will cover the rest of the slate this week on the Play the Fight Song podcast. Appreciate you coming on, Justin. I think we'll bring you back for the rest of the year. I will be in Provo next week. So given some travel, we might air this out a little later in the week, but I'm excited to give you guys the perspective of how it was out there, and hopefully we can bring back a win. I can bring back a win in my suitcase and a little more positive attitude. The Big 12 slate was crazy this weekend as we saw 2 of the top teams go down. The last bedlam. We'll cover all of that this week on the podcast, but We move on. Iowa State plays BYU in Provo, 9:15 Central kick on ESPN. You can get all of your presentation and your recaps on our YouTube page, as well as our episodes on Spotify and Apple. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Cyclone fans, hang in there. Let's get one more win. As always, for the rest of us, go Cyclones.